Well, Demarai Gray thinks they shouldn't be down there. The fact is that they are. Everton do have games in hand. They've only played 26 compared to 29 of the sides either side of them, but they're level on points with Watford. And the thing is, they have games in hand, but the way they're playing, they don't look like they can win those games in hand.
No, and then judging by his interview as well, his demeanour, he's saying all the positive things, but it doesn't seem like he believes them. And that is where, that has to start. That's where it has to start, because you know what you're doing in training, you know how hard you're working in training to actually try to get yourself out of it, build confidence. But if you're going to come onto the TV and do an interview like that if I'm watching it from an opposing team watching him, I don't believe him. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and make sure that you keep that team under pressure. Because, like I say, he's saying the right things. We're talking about a club, I think they've got nine points in 20 games. That is relegation form. That's the kind of form where you're going down. So what you want is you want players who are positive, working hard enough in training. They're not creating enough chances. They need to do something about that. And he is somebody, if we're going to talk about a flair player who can create, we saw him score a great goal there against Arsenal, what he's capable of doing, is going to be a major part of anything that Everton do to try and get themselves out of it. So first he's going to have to change his whole vibe and get a little bit more vibrant about what he's doing, so as then that's the kind of energy you want to generate around the dressing room, because that's what they're going to need, Everton.
Because this is the thing, as much as, and we will talk about Everton's defence, because obviously that's a huge part of what's going wrong there, but they're not scoring either. You know, you look at that with the 4 defeats in a row, there isn't a goal in them.
It's scary, and I think the reason why it's more scary is because in those relegation scraps, the goals is what keeps you safe. And they've got 2 forward players in Calvert-Lewin and Richarlison that typically in a Premier League season, you can say both will give you 10 goals. There's been injuries, there's been form that's not great. And you look around the rest of the team to say who can carry us, and you don't see many people. Demarai Gray had a really good stretch of 3 games where he did his bit, but who else is going to do it? The only person that looks like a bright spark at the moment is Anthony Gordon, and that's a lot to put in a youngster's back. So where are they going to find it from is the big question, especially with the tough games they've got to come as well. You can have a 2-game advantage, but if you're playing against tough opposition and you can't capitalise, it's not an advantage. It's probably to your detriment.
Yeah. That's the thing about it, because I've been in these relegation scraps more than I like to remember. But it's honestly, it's really, really tough down there, because even at times they might have a spell of like 25 minutes where we're like, okay, Everton's doing well, and that's how you feel, and then the other team go down the other end and score, you're like, okay, here we go again. So like what I felt we did when I stayed up with QPR that year, and the last game was against Man City, we went in to try to basically, we said, all right, let's forget about attack for now, because we know we're going to create a chance or two. We just have to be able to take it. Let's focus on not conceding goals. So let's just be as solid. It might be horrible to watch. We might not enjoy it. But if it's going to keep you up, this is the way we're going to do. So we went to Man City and we knew that we're not going to hardly have the ball. I remember the amount of running I had to do, like a crossover here, across there, playing as a right wing back sometimes, like just to make sure we didn't get it. And we just sprung attacks basically. And I feel like they have the caliber of players to do that. Because if we're saying our defence is weak, then the only way to shore it up is to make it compact, because they clearly don't have a suitable replacement for any of the players they have there already. Otherwise, the changes would have been made. So that's what I'm hoping Ashton Lambs do, because they're my guys. So I would love for them to stay up.
I think that comes with experience of being in that space, though. We see it when we see the typical sort of managerial hires with Premier League relegation scraps. Manager comes in and says, all right, boys, we're going to be pragmatic. 2 banks of 4, sit real tight, play long ball and go there. Lamps is a very, very young manager, and it's a very different situation to what he's been in. And ultimately as well, they had 2 managers previously that couldn't get it right. So for him, it's a massive, massive ask, especially when you don't have your key players firing and in that position. So you hope that they can take a leaf out of your book and sort it out quickly in this run, and just try and be a bit more pragmatic and hopefully hit on the counter, have your quick players do something for you. So but it is difficult.
It's exactly what you said about the managers. The women's team's going through the similar thing, and they're in a similar position. So clearly something has to be done higher up to structure the whole thing properly and make everybody know, like, this is our managers, this is the way we're going to play, and just build from there. But obviously with Frank's situation, he hasn't got time for that right now. Right now, it's about survival. Stop the leakage of goals is the first best way. If you look at the clips we saw in the preview, nearly all of them, I think apart from the Wolves one, came down Seamus Coleman's side. So obviously it looks like people are targeting him. And as a good manager, if you know that you're meant to target a team's weak spot, and clearly that's what people are doing. So you need to rectify it somehow and give him extra protection if you do not want to take him out.
Yeah, it's a tough one with Seamus Coleman, who's got such fans have got such an emotional attachment to, and has been so brilliant for Everton over the years. But then it comes to a stage where players have to be replaced. When you were at QPR, when you went into that season, would QPR have expected to be in a relegation battle?
No, most definitely not. Because
that's what I was going to ask about them. Because it feels like this at Everton as well. There is a group of players there who are not assembled just to stay in the Premier League. They're assembled for other ambitions. And I wonder if that creates a problem when you do find yourselves in a relegation battle.
Like when I went to QPR, this is how I imagined it. They just signed a load of players that were towards the end of their career that were successful and were good players. But it wasn't a jigsaw puzzle that you could put together. It was just loads of different puzzle pieces from different puzzles that were just put on a pitch and basically said, go and show us what you need to do. Now, you have to play like a team to get out of the situation they're in. There can't be anything about an individual looking better than anybody. You have to be a unit first. And I think once you get that unit right and they're working hard, like them against City, if the penalty wasn't given, it would have been a draw, and it's a different story. And we're most probably talking about Everton completely different. But that rubber the green goes against them, and they keep sliding. So they have to get back to that performance, and then I think the rest kind of takes care of itself.
They need to stop the rot, don't they? If you manage to stop that losing streak, 'cause they've lost 16 games this season. That's unheard of ever. But if they stop this 4-game rot, even if it's a draw, you can draw a line in the sand and say, okay, that's done. That's how they move on for it. But on the point you mentioned about QPR, I think it's relatable to Everton, because when you speak to their fans, they say that they've not had footballing people in the building. They've just signed a bunch of players and they spent so much, but you can't actually see anything. I remember the times when they were signing 8 or 9 creative attacking midfielders. They were just different variants of each other. And it's like, why have you signed all these same players? And then it's different managers now having to piece it. Signing someone like James Rodriguez, who does something there, and then it's like, okay, what happens now? He's gonna leave. So, and then I think with the fans as well, in your head you never think you're going to be in a relegation scrap. They've never been relegated before. Slowly but surely it becomes a reality, and the players know that as well. For that to fester, you can feel it when you're watching the games where the fans are just like, I can't believe we're here, and they're on the team. They need that one result. If they can get a draw at least, just to stop that rot, it could be the momentum they need.
You know, the thing as well is that we've seen down the years that Everton have survived a few times in this Premier League by the skin of their teeth. I think that one of the things they have to do, if they do survive this time, and so for whatever reason, I hope they do, simply because they've been a constant in the league, is that they've got to stop signing that player like how they've just signed Donny van der Beek and Dele, like you mentioned, James Rodriguez. They're bringing players into a squad that's already low on confidence. They're bringing players who have not quite made it somewhere else, who are low on confidence, to come to a team to what? Give them confidence. They're hoping that this team can give them the platform to get them going. So what's happened with Everton is that they've come into this team low confidence. They've got low confidence, and everybody together has got low confidence. Everton signed those players all the time. Players that are coming towards the end. They're not trying. Mashouri's tried to do that thing where he's buying that top player and spending a lot of money. He's not done it. For whatever reason, the recruitment's been bad. They've not identified the right players. They can't get that player to come there who is in his prime, ready to kick on. They can't do that. So they're getting players like that, and it doesn't help. Look how many different managers have got players in that dressing room what Frank's got now. It's a mishmash. It's like Sean said, different puzzles, pieces from different puzzles. It's just like crazy how it's going to happen. You look at how they're playing, and I cannot see how they're going to get out of it, because yes, they've got Richarlison, they've got Dominic Calvert-Lewin. There's not enough in the team. There's not enough for me. There's not enough pace in the midfield. There's not enough pace in the defence. Gordon, granted, hopefully he can continue to do well. But other than that, like you said, Demarai Gray there, somebody that when you looked at his form at the start of the season, you think to yourself, how can somebody with this kind of form and can play this well didn't do as well as he did at Leicester. This is a chance for him, and it seems like maybe his injuries, whatever it is, but he slipped back into the same thing. Whereas Everton now need players who have got their chest up, ready to go. That's what Frank needs now, and I'm not sure how many of those are in the dressing room.
That's funny because you mentioned your QPR team. You did have characters that said, "Listen, we need to come together and fight." And I feel like it's often forgotten about. But when you lose a key character in your change room, that can be a massive thing as well. One of their informed players or standard bearers was Digne. Had disagreements with the manager. He's gone. I can't imagine what that does to a change room when this is one of the key players in your team is now gone. That might be something that they're still lagging from behind as well. He's managed to go to a situation where he's thriving. We're still here. So they do need people to step up and be counted for, because if they don't, they're all going to be in a situation they don't want to be in next year. And we know, we've seen it. When you go down to that championship, it's not easy to come back up. So they really need to turn it around quickly if they want to stay up.
It just feels very strange to be talking about Everton as serious relegation contenders. It doesn't feel right to be having that conversation. There was a worry for Newcastle earlier in the season. I wonder if maybe they're a club that Everton could look at in terms of controversy around the owners aside. The money has been there. It hasn't been the big glamour signings necessarily that the fans were hoping that there might be, but have they been the right signings? Has the money been well spent?
I would, evidently, we have to say no because of the position in the table they are. But if I was them, I would honestly, I know they're two opposite ends of the table, but I would honestly take a look at West Ham's sort of signings, the type of players they play, like Bowen. Like, he's come to West Ham, he's a world beater. Like, for me, he should be in the England team based on his consistent performance over this course of the season. I feel like they need players like that they're going to give you the same amount of defensive work as they are attacking. Because I think if you have both sides of the pitch covered, and like I said, you're solid, and you still have the energy to create the chances and take people on, you're going to get results.
I think that, for me, I have to say, Dan Burns has been very, very good. I think Fraser seems to have found form. Joe Willock seems to have found his form. They've found form at the right time for them in respects of what they're doing now. I think that they've done okay, personally, in what they've done just to this point, because we know that there's a lot of money in and around them, Sean, with them. But like we all know, people are not going to. They're not going to just say, "I'll go and buy a great player and this player." You have to buy a certain level of player and build up. Chelsea done it, City done it. All the teams do it when the money comes in. You go from that level player to that level of player, that level player. What they've done with this player is that they've made sure that they've got the players that can get them to this next point.